Well, hello and welcome to Align Online. Yes, I know the time is a little bit different, but we are here to spend some time with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Real quickly, my name is Graylin Griffin, and I am excited about the conversation we're going to have today. So, as you join us, we're going to jump right into this today. We're ready to get this thing started. So, I want you to think about this. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think about it. Remember, throughout today's conversation, feel free to jump in and comment your answers, share something that resonates with you. And we can start right here with a little bit of practice. I'm going to ask the question, and in doing so, I'm going to give my other teammates on the call today an opportunity to introduce themselves. So the question is, what do you think of when you hear the word community? One more time. What do you think of when you hear the word community? I'll give you 10 seconds to think about it. Go.
Who's going to go first? That's what I want to know.
I'm going to go up, and on my screen, I think that's on everybody's screen. I think that's Mr. Zach Tinney himself. You got about 5 more seconds, Zach.
Oh,
3,
no. I'm second
2, 1. Go ahead, man.
What do I think about when I hear the word community? So I come from a church background, and so when I think community, I think work. I think sometimes community can be really difficult. I also think about community college, where I spent way too much time trying to figure out what the heck I was doing with my life and spent way too much money.
That's real.
Money and work. All right.
College, yes.
That's good. That's good. I like the question. I think what I think of when I think of the word community, I think of a place where you like I think of like where you feel at home. You feel like you can be yourself, your natural self, shoes off, comfy on the couch. So that's kind of what I think of.
Good.
I have like these competing thoughts in my brain, especially with your guys' influence of what you just said. Now I like want to steal your ideas, but I think the first thing is, coming from a church background, just like the community groups, Bible study, that then leads me to think of like this idea of like brotherhood, this I've got your back, you've got mine, this leaning on each other, no one's in it alone kind of mentality.
So good.
And I think we just need to say welcome to Kinsey real quick.
Hey, Kinsey.
Already. We are so excited to have you.
I really wasn't given a choice, but I'm excited to be here, pushing me outside of my comfort zone.
The Wi-Fi router cord earlier trying to get out of this.
I did. That is why we're behind. I really tried to escape. Here we are, though.
What about you, Graylin Griffin?
Oh, man. So I'm going to just go a completely different direction. I think of the show Community, and I think of it for a couple of reasons. One, the show is hilarious, but two, it's kind of like this. It is the community college feel, but there's this kind of ragtag group of people who come together and form these really lifelong friendships and bonds, and it's just really cool to see that. I think it makes for good television. But in reality, I think it's also something that we all want. And when we don't have it, we long for it. When we do have it, we want to hold on to it with everything we have. So, yeah, man.
Wow, that's good. That's good. I think some of the best things in life are those things that you're like, I don't know how to define it, but I know when it's missing. You know what I mean? I think that's like some of the best things. So hey, here we are. It's week 4. We're wrapping up this series on foundations of leadership here at Alignment Leadership, and we're talking about our 4th principle today, which Graylin was leading us into, talking about community. So our 4th foundation here, the 4th foundational principle that we adhere to about when we approach leadership here is that authentic community overcomes isolation and regret. And so that's what we're going to unpack today and just kind of discuss, muse about a little bit. And we're looking forward to interacting with our community here on Align Online about this topic. So Great lead in. We all have different kind of word, associations with the word community, and I think it's going to mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, of course, like anything. We kind of talked about that last week too. So since it is in our foundational principle, this word, there's a word attached to community. It's not just, you need community. So we purposefully put an adjective right on the front end of that, authentic community. So let's unpack that a little bit. What's the difference between authentic community? So an authentic, Zach, authentic work and spending too much money versus inauthentic. No, an authentic community versus just community. Let's talk about that.
I think one of the reasons that I think work is because I long for authentic community. I want to genuinely connect with people. I'm not the biggest fan of small talk. How's the weather? I want to go deep with people. I want to get to know people. And so I think that's the difference between the community that a lot of us settle for and authentic community is depth. I think vulnerability, where I can fully show up and be me exactly where I'm at, because I know with depth comes transformation.
That's good.
I think when you're talking just in general terms about community, we kind of talked about this yesterday in our prep meeting. It's like if you're not necessarily feeling like you're around people, like you can still be lonely in community, if you're just around people, like in a community group or in a neighborhood. Like there's a lot of ways to define community, and so that doesn't necessarily abolish this idea of loneliness or isolation, right? Like you can be around people and still feel lonely. That's why I think depression is like a thing on the rise, is because you think you're going to solve that feeling by being around people, and that's not always the case. You need like that deeper level of community, that the thing that brings you deeper into like who you actually are and who that other person actually is. And when you can get to that place, that's when you can feel like you're not alone and you're not isolated anymore.
Yeah, that's so good. I think that kind of what you're pointing at there, Kenzie, is kind of like the essence of why this ended up being a foundation to leadership for us. Because there is like, on our journey toward thinking through how do you redefine leadership in a way that just completely shifts the atmosphere for people and creates this possibility for fulfillment for everybody. There's this aspect of like, we can't just all show up and kind of maybe do community like maybe what we're somewhat like ingrained in doing or kind of inoculated to, right? Which is somewhat of, can be that experience. Like I've got my community in my neighborhood, got my, my kids are in elementary school. There's community around that school. There's community can be formed in a lot of different ways. And it can, if we're not intentional about it, can really just be like what you're saying, just something that you're there, you're physically present in the room with people, but you're, relationally like miles apart.
Right. If you're just there to check off the box, like, yeah, I'm involved, you're missing out desperately. So.
If you think about that, I think since our conversations week after week, we're always trying to figure out how we take this into the work setting. I think the work setting is no different. I think I've personally experienced going to work just to go to work and not really with any sort of expectation or desire to get more out of work than just I'm just here to do something, right? And there's a complete lack of true connection or meaningful connection in relationships. There's no authentic community. There's maybe community, which it may not be negative. It may just be neutral, maybe, so to speak, but there's something missing.
It's like if you throw a team luncheon, there's going to be a ton of community. People are coming out of the woodwork. But like whenever you're sitting an hour or two of that grindy budget meeting, like, are we still on mission together? Do you still have my back? Am I genuinely, intentionally invested in you?
Yeah.
That's where it's tested.
Yeah, it's true. That's good. Where did you guys, when you think about maybe first experience with authentic community, what is an example of that? Who was that group? Where did you first kind of experience that? Something that was different. You're like, okay, this is something different than just a general surface level community. This feels a lot more authentic. And maybe we'll talk later about, in a few minutes, about like, what do we mean by authentic, and what we'll muse about that a little bit. But I'm kind of curious to hear what you guys think, what your experiences are with that.
I think my first experience with authentic community was in high school with my church youth group. I was very, very fortunate, and I look back on it, and this is a direct result of like a really strong leader. We had a fantastic student pastor who did a very great, deliberate job, intentional job in like kind of helping us foster it and discover that in each other. And I knew it was authentic community because I was like in high school, I was involved. I played sports throughout high school. I was fortunate to get a lot of those experiences and to be around a lot of people and, to be in the in crowd of sorts, but felt like, I guess, that isolation. Didn't really feel like I belonged, or didn't have any really strong relationships there. And so after high school, I think I can count on one hand, the number of relationships that I still talk to after 4 years and many games and whatever. But those memories I have from like my student ministry in a youth group, good and bad. I think that's the other thing that kind of contributed to an authentic community, is that there were some messy times, but we were just so close, and there was a depth of relationship and investment that a lot of those relationships. I actually went to coffee with one of my best friends from childhood who was a part of that youth group. He lives in Alabama and has bounced around the nation. But every time we get back together, it's like we pick up where we were when we were, 19 or 20, 17 or 18 years old, just because it was one of those truly authentic, deep relationships. And I mean, ask me more about that relationship later on, but it's one of those ones that it's just like, really? So that's my first experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, when I think of like middle school and high school, like a lot of those relationships have fizzled out. I don't talk to anybody from middle school or high school anymore. I think of like football team or basketball team where you had shared experience and you were on mission together, but I don't know that there was really depth. Like you really kind of just were known for your talent and what you could produce. I do think of like youth group and just some of the weird experiences that we went through together, like being stuck in a van or being on a mission trip, has a way of bonding you together where you're going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly parts of me. And I think that's really important to authentic relationship. I really think I just lucked out. Like when I went to college, I found a good mentor who took me under his wing. And that's when I really experienced like depth of relationship. I was fully able to show up to, and that was a game changer for me. I had to intentionally practice fully showing up, or else I go into like my little fear shelter. I need you guys to pull that out of me.
What does Zach's version fully showing up? What do you explain what you mean by that? That's a great phrase.
For me, it's just related to that first principle that anyone could and should lead. A lot of times I think I put it, leadership, like that's something that someone else is going to do. And because of that, I hold back ideas, or I hold back feelings or convictions. I hold back a piece of me because I don't want to disrupt. Really, I'm holding back from our organization and our mission. And when I don't put all of me out there, the organization suffers.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's I love that, because I think that goes very close in hand with the word authentic. There's an aspect of like it's the real you, you're true faced. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like whether I'm in this room with this team or I'm out of work with friends, whatever, in a more personal, casual setting, I'm the same person. There's other words that come to mind are words like integrity, or just a truthfulness or a humility of like this is who I am no matter where I'm at. So yeah, I like that. I think my first I would say one of my I think there's 2 points in my life where there were like really just a clear experience and demonstration of like, wow, this is a level of authenticity and authentic community I've never experienced before. One was in college with roommates, first year at college, and then throughout my college experience, just having, brothers, sisters, they felt like brothers and sisters who just, you're such close friends. And there's just a realness. I felt like I learned to kind of take my mask off and stop pretending, and let people see the real me, insecurities, the high points, the low points. And then the second time was with just one other person, a friend of mine named Jason, who 6 years ago when I had just a personal crisis in my life, he was a person who came alongside me, pursued me hardcore to be like, man, I'm not going to let you walk alone through this. And it was like, I had never experienced anyone so, committed to friendship and very similar. I could bring my full self. I could be just, an absolute idiot, or, let my monsters out, and it wouldn't, it's not like it would scare him away or make him think any less of me. He was like, man, I'm still here. I'm still your friend. So those were two experiences for me that were like a demonstration of authenticity that really like just shaped my worldview, changed my thinking. It was like, man, I want to relate this way in every environment that I'm in. And so I just started looking for that in a work setting, and then just loved how in our culture, what we work on, what we talk about here in our culture, alignment leadership, that this is like core values,
Yeah. A book that was a game changer for me on that is Scary Close by Donald Miller.
Nice.
It talks about all the different masks that we can put on and what it looks like to fully show up.
Mm-hmm.
So in full transparency, I'm scrambling to look for my laptop charger so that I don't drop out this call.
Wow, thank you.
Man.
Thanks for being so authentic.
Yep. Thanks for accepting me in the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Oh, of course. All right, Kenzie.
My
your
turn.
Story.
I definitely would say like the first time I really experienced it was with my two best friends that I'm still best friends with now. We played basketball together growing up in middle school, best friends in high school, and then roommates in college, and are now trying to figure out the young adult life. And those are two people that I believe know me to my very core. And people that I can show up and totally be, who I am, good, bad, and ugly, all my mistakes, all my flaws. But I feel like the first time that I really experienced true authentic community outside of just like a friendship setting, like where we were just friends first, had a lot of the same interests, and so that's kind of what created it. But starting work here is when I think I really understood that like authentic community doesn't just need to be with people that I can relate to on, things that we like to do outside of school or work or whatever. It can be with people that are older than me, younger than me, have completely different interests. Like I can still be known truly by people that don't do the same things that I do, or don't necessarily believe the same things that I do, but that there's this level of authenticity that can exist like in the workplace, which is just not something that I ever even thought possible. Like I graduated from school like a little over a year ago. And, my idea of work was you go in, you do your work, and you get out, and then you have your life. And that's the way I wanted it to be, honestly. Like I didn't want people at work to really know what I was like outside of work. Like I wanted to be the same person at work, but I didn't want my personal life and my work life to mix. And I think the first day I started, it was like, oh, that's not going to work. These people are asking me all sorts of questions about my life. And then I just kind of got to this point of like, oh, it's like really nice to be known at work. Like people know what's going on in their personal life, and it's okay to show up messy and not always be like on your game at work. You don't have to be this perfect person who has it all together all the time. You can be real, and you can be a human being that messes up and makes mistakes. Sorry, I'm laughing at Zach popping in. But that was this first realization to me that, community doesn't have to exist in just friendship or in just like a Bible study. It can be in the workplace, and it can be with people. You spend so much time with the people you work with. Why wouldn't you want them to know know you and you to know them. So
Yeah.
those are
I think that brings up a really good comparison, because I think most of us probably kind of have an assumption about authenticity and the timeline of it. That like, oh, I need longevity in order to have this level of authenticity. But the point that I think that you brought up so well, Kenzie, is that it was like you experienced authenticity with these relationships, which to me is like remarkable. I've just moved a bunch in my life, so I don't talk or hang out with the people I knew in middle school. So the fact that you maintain those relationships is just like, that is phenomenal. I love that. So there's you were articulating that like there's this aspect of longevity. We've known each other forever, kind of thing. You've grown up together, really.
Right.
And so there's this level of authenticity you experience. But I love that you were explaining that kind of new mindset or awareness you found when you're like, oh, I guess maybe actually I can achieve a level of authenticity even with people that I'm just getting to know for the first time. And that's changing the way I, show up at work. So I think that's just a brilliant point, because I think most of us assume authenticity is something for later and not right now.
Yeah. There's this specific, you have to go through these steps in order to be able to share this with this person.
Yeah.
And yes, it takes time. Like, it's not going to be this instant, oh, I can share anything about my life with anyone, but I don't think there is this like specific timeline. I think, people are messy and, circumstances arise. And I just think the more vulnerable we can be and being able to trust each other is a huge part of that. Just, why can't we be authentic now? Why waste time?
That's good.
You guys have both, like, you got my wheels turning. I'm thinking now, like, as an outsider or someone who experienced what you experienced, Kenzie, like, what were some of the things that kind of broke down or broke you out of maybe the timeline of like depth and authenticity? Like, what were some of the things you experienced when you started working for this organization that, helped kind of move that and propel you into more of a authentic relationship versus like, traditionally how most people will show up?
I'm trying to think of like specifics. Like when I first started, I worked with 2 girls really closely, and didn't really know them before I started. And it was just showing up every day, and it's like, it's us 3 again, like, hey, and so you just kind of start to ask questions about their lives. And I just started to get invested, like, what's going on at home, like, oh, you're buying a house, that's so exciting. Like, just starting like those little surface level questions, and I could just feel myself getting invested, and I can feel them getting invested into me, and we were leading the Leadership Academy in Vegas. We were kind of putting that on, and there was one night we were kind of all sitting down and kind of talking about just like the struggles of the day, and just got to sit there and encourage each other. And I was like, oh, this is different. Like, yes, I care about what's going on in your life, and yes, I know what you do every day, but to like actually share like the hurts and struggles part, I think was what made it more authentic. I don't want to keep using that word, but just made it this like sense of unity within us. Like, oh, we're like, that's something that was hard for you, and you're sharing that with me, which just makes me feel like this empathy for you, but also like this unity and this bond with you now, that if you're willing to share that with me, then I want to steward that relationship well, so that you can depend on me and I can depend on you. And so I think it's more the messier or the harder times when, we need authentic community the most, but that's also when I think it appears or it grows the most, depending on how you handle that situation. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but
no,
absolutely. That was amazing. That was amazing. Yeah.
I think that is what is, I think there's a deterrent often with like the hurts and struggles piece of authenticity. There's the authenticity of like the courage it takes, like what Zach was saying earlier, to like actually share your opinion when you have it, or to, just to not hold back your ideas or your thoughts or opinions, or just your experience, that, don't hold those back. There's a level of courage there. Then there's also that level of, boldness and courage it takes to share real hurts and insecurities or things like that, you guys were going through. And that story that you shared about what you guys went through in Vegas, I think is so powerful. It's a perfect example. I think it just takes one person. It's like one person to just step in and be like, hey, can I just unload a little bit of my, hurts and insecurities right now in this moment that we're all trying to get this work done, but I'm struggling. And what I love is that the response from the group was not, oh, we don't have time to talk about that. Or what, that we're just here to get work done. Like the response was empathy. It literally was like, by sharing something real, you're literally drawing the empathy out of other people, and you're giving them a chance to, exercise their intrinsic value too. Like they might be gifted in compassion or, it's the sensitivity to people that if you never would have said something, they never would have had a chance to kind of let their gifts shine. So,
so good.
I think people crave, authentic community. Like everybody wants it. People are just terrified of it, There's a lot of fear in that. And, I've been burned before too, you tell somebody something and they use it against you or whatever. It happens for sure. So I get that there's a sense of fear in that, or this sense of weakness for needing help. But we're created to be, we're created for community, I believe, I grow the most when there are people around me telling me what I'm doing wrong and what I'm doing right. And I need that. Otherwise I'm not going anywhere, I just sit there and stew on all of the lies that my brain will tell me and trick myself into thinking they're true. And so I need community desperately, and it is scary, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Dang, Kinsey dropping bombs.
I'm telling you, man.
On that so right there.
Well, I definitely wouldn't be here on the AO Live if it wasn't for you guys.
So thank you over
why you're here.
For
those watching, this is the kind of stuff we hear all the time, and we're like, what? You got to get on AO Live with us and share that.
Okay, so question. I know we all crave community, definitely on a personal level, but you talked about the simple but not always easy process, like the work that it takes to redefine a workplace culture. This means I actually have to intentionally prioritize people over priorities. It means that I have to slow down and ask the hard questions sometimes, that I have to invest in you fully, that we have to make sure we're both aligned to our purpose. It's a lot of work. So what's the benefit of me practicing this authentic community in the workplace when sometimes it feels like I just need to knock out TPS reports or get stuff done?
TPS reports, yes. I think that's the question all of us ask at some point. Everyone's asking why. I've got my authentic community. I understand that's a great important thing, but I've got that in my personal life. Why do we actually need it in the workplace? I think that's the question I think most of us ask at some point. I would jump on that and say that it kind of references something you shared earlier, Zach, that struck a chord with me, but it's basically when you, if you're not living in authentic community at work, it means there's a major part of you not being shared, not being brought into the work environment, not being focused in on that purpose that you that team exists for, right? So there's, to me, a lack of authenticity in the community of your team means, I would say, guaranteed a lack of efficiency, proficiency, lack of fulfillment. There's just not a thriving environment there. And so to me, I'm I didn't have this mentality my whole life, but over the last couple of years have really, my thinking is shaped and morphed in this, that I'm man, there is no other way. Now I just see the world differently in a team setting, that it's there's got to be this authenticity, because I need the full version of Zach. I need everything that you carry personally, everything that makes you unique. And it's just like, I need all of that, you know, even if it's a opinion that's different than mine at times, like, and we need that to be better. So to me, it's like, this is why we need this in the workplace. But what do you guys think?
Man, I agree with that. It kind of like takes me back to the conversation we were having last week, just about value.
Yeah.
And when you're able to, you know, as was one person, unlock the value in someone else and draw that out of them, then you get to see, you know, a side of maybe creativity or fulfillment, you know, that a side of work or, you know, preparation that comes from a place of fulfillment. And that is where I think, like Kinsey was saying, as they, took the time to have these conversations and to speak a little bit deeper and get to hear from these people, she was then able to steward. Like there was some value that came out of this individual, and she recognized that. And now, what do you do with something valuable? You want to be careful with it. You want to steward it well. Yeah. And I think when people are able to trust that who they are is going to be stewarded well, and you know their value is stewarded well, I think people show up differently. And not to just make it about productivity, but there's a reality that there is an outflow of a different level of productivity when you're doing it from a place of fulfillment. Mm-hmm. And so authentic community, I think, unlocks, and the work that it takes to get there unlocks, like, you know, levels and places that, you know, you wouldn't go if you're just showing up punching a clock. Yeah. So that's from a professional standpoint, like, man, this is why this is important. And it's not just about productivity. It's about knowing someone and stewarding that relationship well. Kinsey, that is such a phenomenal,
it really
that's quotable. I love that. That's so
I know.
good.
I mean, I'm like, there's two things that I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I want to add this to that conversation of leadership last week. Is like, you know, anyone can lead when leadership is stewarding the authenticity of others around you, right? If that's what leadership is in that moment, come on, anybody can do that. Like, that's incredible. Secondly, I want to hear the rest of the story. Like, so Kenzie, we've kind of heard, like, we've heard the part of the story that was like this side of authenticity up to this point of this beautifully authentic community moment. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, did you notice changes to the way that you and that your small team there was operating after the fact? Was there a noticeable, was there a noticeable change?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing was that we were able to have really tough conversations and know that I'm having this conversation not to like tear you down, but because I like really care about you. And I don't want to sit in any sort of ambiguity. Like, I don't want you mad at me. I don't want to be mad at you. I don't want there to be any sort of ambiguity about what's going on. So there was just like this level of accountability that we were able to have. Where it was just like, hey, I need to have this really difficult conversation with you because this is what you had said. This is how I felt about it. Are we on the same page? Are we not on the same page? What do I need to do, you know, to help you in this situation or help myself? And so I am not a person of confrontation at all. I hate it. I would have avoided it like the plague. And to be able to be at that point with like two other people, like at work, to be able to just say like, hey, we have to have this tough conversation and we're going to do it now because I can't sit in this anymore. I care about you too much to sit in it. And I don't want you to sit in it either. And so I think that was like one of the biggest things that I noticed that I had never experienced before, especially in the workplace, of just being able to have those tough conversations and have that level of accountability with people that made me feel like I wasn't the bad guy for having to say it, but like I was just taking care of this relationship that I cared so much about now. So
isn't that real? You can spend so much time like fighting against somebody that you're not actually fighting for the purpose. Like you're just grinding.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's important. Like I'm not on that same team anymore. And I don't regret a second of that community that we were able to share. Like, I still care about both of those girls a ton. And so it's that level of community was for a season, but it was 100% worth it. Like, I wouldn't be who I am or where I am today without it. And so I think sometimes we can get bogged down by, who knows how long I'm going to be working here, or who knows how long this. And it's like, no one knows. So it's like, if we all sit around like that, then we're all lonely and isolated. And so it's like, yeah, it might be for a season, but
no, that's good.
I argue it's 100% worth it. So
I just want to pause there because I just feel like someone watching this video live with us or later after the fact I just feel like there's a moment here for someone right now, someone who's just sitting there on a team. Maybe you're thinking exactly what Kenzie just said. Like, I don't know how much longer I can be on this team. I don't know how much longer I can stand in this environment, or I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking of making this move. Maybe you're in a sort of more traditional leadership role and you're just like burnt out and you're not feeling that connection. And there's just a lot of maybe awkward tension around you. This is just a moment for you to just say, I just want to say you're not alone in that. There are people all around you who have experienced that. We've been there too. And this is a moment for incredible, like, bold, daring leadership. Maybe instead of retreating, there's an opportunity to step in for authenticity, to reach out and to dig deep into fostering the kind of relationship you need with maybe that person you're thinking about right now. So I just feel like that story was like powerful, Kenzie. And I love that the ending is like, what you said was like, that's the key. You're like, I don't have any regret over, we're not on the same team anymore. We don't work together anymore day to day, but I have no regrets about how, like, those relationships, right? That is a gift that is like only this, the way we're redefining leadership. It's a gift that only this definition can give you. To know that, like, you can look back on the past and like work in relationships and be like, okay, even if there were hard times, I have no regrets over how I carried myself, how I stewarded the authenticity of others, how I cared for individuals, even though it was a really hard, complex scenario. Like, you live with no regrets. And that's what I think it's just such a powerful, freeing message for leaders.
So, even if it's for a season, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Come on, Kenzie.
It's good.
Well,
good.
Perfect.
Good night.
Perfect. But it's a bunch of real people wanting to love and serve each other. So
that's right.
Yeah.
It's perfect. But
it's good, man. I think, a fresh perspective. And, I've had a lot of conversations with Josh over the last couple of years, and Zach almost a year, and I think with each person, with each layer of our team comes this new, fresh perspective of like how to live out these principles. And so I am literally just soaking up everything, So this is so good.
Good.
Well, can I share a workplace parable?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sweet. As I was wrestling with this idea, I thought about how a lot of us do work, how a lot of us traditionally do work, right?
Right.
And this story comes to mind. It's the idea of emergent holism, which sounds really smart and cool. And I'm not even 100% sure I understand what it means, but in the workplace I do. So think about, like, if you wanted to build the best car or the perfect car, and you get all these different car manufacturers together, and you start picking like all the best of pieces. So I might take like the body of a 1996 Dodge Viper, and I want the engine from like a McLaren, and I want the hubcaps from this car manufacturer, and I want this Rolls Royce part in there. And then you put them all together. Well, what do you get? You get like this Franken car that's not going to go anywhere. Like, you're not even going to be able to push it down the street because all the parts don't work together. So like individually, all the parts are out of this world. Their quality, it makes sense. But there's something more important, and that's how all the parts of the pieces come together to accomplish something bigger than they could individually.
Yeah.
So I think that's what authentic community does. is it's not just all the individual pieces fully showing up or doing what they were designed to do, but looking at how all of those parts come together to accomplish something so much bigger than they ever could by themselves.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's good.
I did not understand where you're going with that at first. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I don't understand cars.
It's like the 1992 Bulls, where we just want Dennis Rodman to be Dennis Rodman. Let's let Jordan be Jordan.
Yes, I follow you, and I love that. Yeah, it creates
Maybe
that.
Longley on the team. I don't know, but everybody has a purpose.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
good.
There's something so unique about the chemistry of the interaction between people. I saw this quote by I forget what I was digging around on like Myers-Briggs stuff and even Enneagram and seeing the references to Carl Jung and something like that. And he had this reference of anytime two personalities meet, there's a chemical reaction, and the way chemical reactions work is like when they've interacted, both transform. Like there's no other outcome except that both transform. And he was kind of making a reference obviously to like the way personalities people interact to, chemistry and stuff like that. So I mean, it was like, it really relates to what I think you're saying. It's like there is something so unique about the uniqueness of individuals, but also the collective like way they all interact. And if they're all, if they're unified, pursuing the same thing, if they're doing community authentically in the right way, it just elevates. It elevates potential and experience for everyone. Yeah. So, so we've been talking about a lot about our conversation so far. It's been a lot about this word authenticity and authenticity in the workplace and teams. There's this, I want to hit on before we run out of time. I do want to hit on another really key part, which is communicating the value of one another and what that looks like. This is something we talk about as a team. We mused about a little bit as we were prepping for this conversation. But it's almost like, well, how do you, if we say foundation number 4, authentic community overcomes isolation and regret. And this is a key to the way we have to lead. This is the component that's like, well, how do you do that? We've hit on a couple things. I'll recap from what I've heard, and then I want to share the part that we haven't said explicitly yet. But you do that through just pursuing a depth of relationships, being real, showing up fully as yourself. I think approaching your teammates with the mentality of I don't have to be perfect, and not expecting that of other people too. Sharing hurts and struggles because it brings out empathy, and it also then builds that when you connect in that way, it's building that equity for hard conversations. And then when people are actually authentic or vulnerable, you actually steward it. You steward it well. You plug it into the right spot. You support it, and you care for it. So those are some things that I think are really powerful takeaways. Another thing that we talked about that I want to hit on is specifically stepping out to communicate the intrinsic value of people, and how that leads to this ability to be authentic, if that makes sense. So Zach, you had said something earlier about it kind of along the lines of showing up as your full self, or when when I show up as my full self, like it gives it gives the ability to kind of like receive in a different way from other people around me. So yeah, I'll just kind of highlight you for a second here, but like jump in on that, share your thoughts on that, because I know that you've shared a lot on that in our conversations in the past about just communicating specific value that you see in other people and how that leads to authentic community.
Yeah. So I don't know, this makes me think of there's the social looking glass theory. It's something that we all know because we're all like pack creatures. It's something we learned in middle school at like a really primal level, but it's the idea that I'm not who you think I am. I'm not even who I think I am.
Right.
Like I'm the result of who I think you think I am.
Right.
So I'm always reacting to like fear and uncertainty, man, what does Josh think about what I'm sayI'm saying? Or
Yeah.
what do you think about that interaction? Was that weird? Was that awkward? How can I do that differently next time? And I'm thinking about something that Kinsey said, where I'm just leaving no room for ambiguity. If we're always affirming the value in someone else, then it doesn't leave any room for that fear and uncertainty to like speak those lies in our head just on a loop.
Yeah.
You know, instead, I'm going to start thinking of those positive interactions. I know who Josh thinks I am because he told me. He was finding that intrinsic value in me the whole time. And so it just shuts out all of those other voices that I think we all deal with, usually 5 minutes before we go on AL Live, or when we lay in bed at night, or all stinking day.
Yeah, that's good. I think our natural tendency on our own in isolation is to one extreme or the other, either to think really highly of ourselves, and there's this sense of maybe prideful arrogance, or to think really low of ourselves, which I don't know, I guess is also somewhat prideful in a weird way, but we're either just thinking way too low or way too high of ourselves, and we need something that's like actually truthful and in the middle and centered.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. So there's the how-tos, you know, so simple, not easy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but such a great pursuit. You good, Kenzie? She's all good.
Kinsey, are we bonding in the struggle? Did you cheer your power cord?
Pose number 3.
Real. It's okay.
It's all right.
Well.
So let's do a recap. We've got a few minutes left. If you guys are feeling ready for that.
Yeah. So just recapping the 4 principles that we've covered.
Yeah, we are. This is that's like recap the 4 foundations of leadership and wrap it up in a pretty little bow.
Sweet.
So kick us off, Zach.
I'll kick off with principle number 1. And leadership principle number 1 is just the idea that anyone could, or anyone can and should lead. And I love it's not just the idea that anyone can, like everyone has influence. It's just a matter of recognizing your influence. So that's the mom who's leading her family. That's the CEO at work. Like everybody can lead, but everyone should lead. That when you show up, that you have something to offer, that you make the organization a better place, that you are guiding your family in every little interaction. You're changing the culture. So I love that. I love it. It gives us all ownership, empowers us all to step into the gifts and talents and passions that we all have.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm going to affirm GG right now, because this guy has mastered this concept. And every little conversation is a moment for Graylin to lead.
That's so true.
Any little conversation with Graylin can go deep really, really quick as he invests in other people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, thank you, bro.
And he looks
I
good.
Appreciate that. Well, thank you. You caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that. So thank you very much.
All right,
so number 2.
Number 2, recap it for us, Graylin.
I think am I number 2 or number 3? I thought I was number 3. But I can. Kinsey, I think you're number 2. Are you number 2?
Whatever one is leadership is loving and serving others.
Number 2, everyone has intrinsic value. Graylin.
They all
that's me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at the wrong list. Okay, so yes, thank you. And again, thank you, Zach, for your kind words. I apologize for thinking something differently. Everyone has intrinsic value, and I wrote these notes down because I was starting to think about this. First and foremost, you have value. As a leader, you have value, and you have to know that in order to unlock and draw out the value of other people. When you walk in that, then you're anchored to something beyond what you are able to produce in a professional environment. When you're anchored in your value and who you are, then it's so much more than just completing tasks and priorities. It allows you, the comfort and the security to fail but not be a failure. And you don't have to just strive, you can truly serve. The other thing is other people have value. And so when it's a privilege, like Kinsey said today, drawing out, and creating space and slowing things down enough to hear someone else's truth, who they really are, to see their value, and then have the opportunity to steward that really unlocks, another level of productivity, because it's been connected to value, it's connected to fulfillment. And so, man, there's nothing better than doing that for someone else. Mm-hmm. And so that takes me to the last point. Because you have value, you deserve to be fulfilled, and that includes your professional life and professional experience. You deserve it in your personal life, but that transfers. That transfers from your personal life into your professional life as well. And so your time, what you're working on, the things you're passionate about, you deserve to be able to work in that fulfillment because of your value. So, all right. Good. So I'm transitioning to Kinsey, correct?
That's right.
Or Josh. Okay. So Kinsey, I've been very fortunate over the past few weeks to get to work with you more. And the more I work with you, the more I get to discover just the depth of your personality in the work, the intentionality, the diligence that you place with everything you do. And you don't just come to work like to complete tasks. You're very intentional about everything you do, and you're looking for ways to serve us. And I think today you put words to what I've been experiencing. You steward the relationships, you steward the time you have with people really well. And I feel like, we are all better because of that. So, I just want to affirm you and encourage you to continue to do this. You have valuable things to say because you lead and you live from that place and who you are. So, yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Wow. I don't always loved being affirmed, but I've learned that I need that. I need the truth of my value to be affirmed through community, so that I don't shy away from who I am. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Graylin. The foundational principle I'm going to be talking about is which is also our definition of leadership, which is leadership is loving and serving others towards fulfillment. And I think I wanted to talk about this one because this one hits home, I think, the most for me. I love this definition because I just don't see any point or reason in being in leadership for anything else. I think leadership is one of the most selfless things a person can do. I don't think it should be for any personal gain or to have authority or control over people. I think that never leads to the results that you're wanting. And so I just love that this definition is so raw and real. And I think it makes it harder because I think it's easier to tell people what to do, for sure. And when people don't do what you want, it's a lot easier to just kind of command and control. But I think to love and to serve people is just one of the most selfless things a person can do. And I think we need both aspects of that. I think we need to love people really well, because one, who knows what they're experiencing outside of the work setting or whatever place that you're leading from. The world is a hard and harsh place. And so I think, to be able to just love people for who they are just really resonates with people because it's not, I don't think most people's natural tendency. And, love is a choice that you get to show up for people every single day and, willing to lay down something that you want for the willingness of someone else. And so, which leads to service. Like, I think recognizing that people have needs that need to be met, and, we're all humans, we can't always meet those needs. And so to be able to serve and meet those person's needs is huge. And so to combine those two, I think we need both. If we don't have love, then our service is not going to be moving in the right direction. And if we don't have service, then our love is kind of shallow. We're not doing anything about that love. And so we need to have both in order to really love and serve people really well, which then leads me to Josh. I think you have done both of these things incredibly well for this team. I have worked with you not for very long, but I've been observing you for a long time. And so I just want you to know that I've seen the way that you love people and you care and you are emotionally invested in what's going on with the people that you work with. And I think everybody can attest, if they've been around you, that they feel that and they understand that and they know that you're in their corner and you've got their back no matter what the circumstances are. And just from the few weeks that I've known you, like, I know I've got Josh in my corner. And so I just want you to know that that is something real that people feel and people need. And you do that really well.
Wow. Thanks, Kenzie. I received that. It's so good. Yeah. Man, love that. We need that boost. Feels so good. Thank you. Well, our last foundational principle we talked about today is authentic community overcomes isolation and regret. On your own, as a leader, or as just someone trying to influence anyone around you, whether that's your family or friends or coworkers, whoever, on your own, in isolation, the best you can hope for is to be thinking the worst about yourself, probably. Too low, too high, and mistakes happen. Authentic community speaks into you. It speaks about your value. It reminds you about who you really are when you need to be brought down a notch or when you need to be brought up a few notches. Authentic community surrounds you with truth and speaks that over you to remind you who you are, no matter what, no matter how you show up. It gives you hope to show up the next day better than you were the day before. And so you need that community around you to be a leader who influences the way that you want to. We all want to leave a legacy. We all want to lead well. We all want to end, without regret and without loneliness. And you need authentic community to do that. So in our journey to redefine leadership, that's the fourth foundational principle. And that kind of recaps our journey, going through kind of our core, you could call them beliefs, core values on how we approach leadership and how we redefine it. So we really appreciate everyone who's been tuning in and watching this and digging in. On that note, let me first also just say something amazing about Zach and follow suit. Love what you guys have been saying. So Zach, since you were the first one, no one got to say anything nice about you. But Zach, one of the things that I think you do really well that actually really influences me is the way that you champion other people's talents and passions. Like when you even get a hint of somebody and their passion and they're just something that's they're being driven by, you surround it, you jump on it, encourage it, you send links, resources, ideas, funny YouTube videos, anything to say, hey, I believe in that with you and I think you should do it too. And I just think it's one of the most amazing examples I've seen of someone who's like, I can see that person going after fulfillment and I'm going to just put a little breadcrumb right in front of them and say, hey, keep going. So I love that about you, the way that you champion people's passions. It's you've like really impacted me personally in that realm. So thank you for being you. So for those who have been just tuning in, if you're getting anything out of Align Online, if there's just something impacting you, and if you'd be willing, we'd be honored if you'd share this with those that you think should be brought into these conversations as well. So share the link, share our Facebook group with those that you want to be, you want to pull them into these times as we're just journeying together, learning together what it means to lead and how to redefine that together. So we invite you to do that. We'd be honored if you would. Coming up in just, I think it's 9 days, guys, 9 or 10 days. It's next week, next Thursday. Is the Global Leadership Summit. So if you haven't got your tickets, go to glsaustin.com and get your tickets. It's going to be an incredible leadership conference virtually that is you won't want to miss. So there's the link there on the bottom of the screen. Make sure you don't miss out on that. As always, join us here every week. And don't let your passion for Align Online fizzle. Come back to us every Tuesday at noon when we don't have technical glitches. And join us next week. We're going to be, I forget what our topic is next week, but we will be, I'm excited to talk about some upcoming products and things that we're going to be sharing with this community, things that we're excited to launch and share. So you'll hear more about that, things that are coming out really soon. And yeah, so we'll see you next week at noon. And thanks. See y'all later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.